roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Today I wanted to talk about a couple of topics, and I want to encourage you to call in if you like. But first I want to tell you what the topics are today. I want to talk about Father's Day. All of us just experienced Father's Day, and for many people it's a very happy time to be with family and to celebrate hopefully a very wonderful experience with your father, if your father's still with you. But for others, it's a sad time for a variety of reasons. But I want to talk about the positives. I want to talk about some wonderful ideas about why Father's Day matters, why it's important, and how important fathers are to families. I want to talk about that in a couple different ways. But I also encourage you to share if you've got something that you think that you'd like to say about your dad, what was special in the relationship you have with him, if he's still here, or if he's gone, and just something, a nice memory you'd like to share about him that you'd like to be able to say online or on Simsbury live stream right now, and just share with the rest of the world what you're thinking about your dad and why he was important to you. And if you're a dad, what it means to you to be a dad, what it means to be a father, how important it is for you to spend time with your family. Now I'm a granddad too, so I'll talk a little bit about that. That's a whole nother experience, and it's a great one. A lot of fun for me this Father's Day, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. The second topic I want to talk about is up and coming, and that's July 4th, 250th birthday of our nation. And while I know that the United States of America isn't a perfect place, I don't think there is any perfect place, there are so many people in our country right now coming from all over the world to celebrate the World Cup in soccer, and seeing our country through their eyes has been so uplifting. There are so many wonderful tributes to America. And I was just listening to a woman from Scotland today talking about, I came here thinking about all the things I see in the news all the time and expecting it to be a very dreary, dreadful place. And she happens to be in Boston and celebrating and going to see soccer games in Foxborough Stadium, at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. And she just says, people have been so warm and so welcoming. And it's been so lovely to be here and to spend time with Americans in Boston. And I've heard that all around the country, if you listen to national news. And so I just want to know what you want to celebrate about America. I know there's things that we could do different and better. That's obvious. We always are working to see if there can be the best version of ourselves, and that means we're always looking to be a little bit critical in terms of what we might do better. But it's also important at times, particularly around milestones, to celebrate something that we're really proud of, something that we feel that we're grateful for, something that really just resonates with us and lifts us up. And I like my show, The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel to Control How You Feel, to be uplifting. And I'm Chuck Wolf, and if you haven't listened to me before and you haven't seen the show, I'm an expert and pioneer in the field of emotional intelligence. I've been very lucky in my life to have some wonderful experiences with some of the greatest thinkers in our world about the science of emotional intelligence. And I've been privileged to be a part of that world and to make a contribution. This emotion roadmap I created is helping people to make people's lives better. To make a more positive, meaningful difference in people's lives has always been a goal of mine, and this emotion roadmap helps me to accomplish that. And the way it works is it simply starts with, if you've got something that's troubling in your life, something that you haven't really figured out what you're going to do next, you have a tough decision to make, you have a conversation you need to have that's going to be challenging, or you're in a situation where you're worried about making a move to a different company perhaps, or to a different town or city. And you're wondering, should I? Is it going to be the right move for me? And if I have a family or others that are part of my group and I have to move and they have to move with me, is it going to be good for them too? What's the best thing for all of us? What's the best choice here? And anytime you're stuck, what I find with really smart people, really excellent critical thinkers, really good problem solvers, is when you're stuck, it's almost always because something emotional is happening inside of you, or potentially happening between you and someone else, or potentially could happen between you and someone else. And so you're hesitant to move forward, to make a decision. You're worried if you decide to move to another town that it'll disrupt maybe the status of your family's friends, and their circumstances will change in a radical way that won't be healthy for maybe your children or your spouse. And even though it might benefit you as a particular individual in a role in a company, it may not be the right thing for your family. Or if it is the right thing, how do you convince your family to go along with you, to be supportive? How do you get that right? How do you make them feel okay about making a move? How do you do that? Well, part of what I've found in life is that if I can help people to look at a circumstance or situation or challenge they face in a new, different, enlightened way, where they focus specifically on what it is that everybody that's key to that situation is feeling, and ask themselves, is that the feeling I want for myself? Is it what I'm feeling the right feeling for me? Or do I need to feel something different? Is there a better feeling maybe at this point in time that would work better for me than what I am feeling? And what about for someone else that's key to what you're doing, that's part of who you are as a family, as a team, as a company? Will it impact them in a positive way? Will they feel the way I want them to feel? And if not, is there some way I could think about what could I do to help them to feel what might be ideal for them to feel about whatever's about to unfold, whatever decision we're about to make, whatever conversation we need to have? How do I set this all up for success? And I call this process emotion-based planning. And I know that there are people listening to me right now. We have an audience. We don't have a large audience yet, but we have an audience. And I know as you're looking and listening to me and you're thinking to yourself, well, that's kind of interesting. Do I have something like that? Is there something on my mind that I might share, that I might benefit from having Chuck walk me through these 4 questions that revolve around the emotion roadmap? And the questions are, tell me about your circumstance, first of all. It starts there. Once we understand what the circumstance or situation is, then the first question is, how are you feeling about it? And is there anyone else that's key? And how is he or she or they feeling? That's the first question or set of questions. The second question is, what would be ideal to feel? Is there a better feeling than what you might be feeling right now that would really help you accomplish what you're setting out to do? Is there a better feeling? And if there is a better, more ideal feeling to feel for you and for others that might be key to what you're trying to get done, how do you get there? How do you get from what you might be feeling to what would be ideal to feel? That's the concept of a roadmap. How do I get from where I am to where I want to go to? How do I do that? And that's where I can help you. I've had lots of experiences over my lifetime. I've been a counselor, I've been a family therapist, worked in schools, worked with the military, worked with the government, worked in universities, worked for big companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. Really, I've kind of worked with almost everybody at one point or another. And so I have a lot to draw on, but I also have some expertise. And this is the creation that I really want to leave for everyone to learn how to use, which is this emotion roadmap, because it makes life better. It's made life better for me, for all those that I've worked with over the years, those that are family and friends that I've shared this with. It makes life better when you know how to manage your emotions more successfully than you might right now. And that's what this roadmap helps you to do. So if you've got something that you think you'd like to work on, if you've got something that you think that you would like some help with, and you're beginning to see that perhaps maybe I can be helpful, and you're willing to call in and share, the beauty of that is once you share and I'm helpful to you, everybody's learning how I do it. And when I do it with you, I hope that you pick up what I'm doing. Simply asking those questions. How are you feeling right now about it? Anyone else that's key? How is he or she or they feeling? What would you like to feel? What would be ideal to feel? How can we make that happen? What are you able and willing to do to make that happen? That's the series of questions. And I'm really, really good at helping take people through those questions to get to solutions. And what's really fascinating to me is that when I walk people through this, it's almost like magic happens and options appear that never would have appeared otherwise. I have a radio show I've been doing for 17 years on WPKN. It's an award-winning radio station out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And on that show, I'm constantly having people call in. I have been for years. And when they call in, I am doing this. But PKN has its own audience. They've had people listening to them since, boy, the 1960s, I think. They became an independent radio station. At one time, they were the University of Bridgeport's radio station. And they've won some awards for their wonderful music. They have all kinds of musical programmers who are just, they love, love, love music. And they know music. And they are really, really good at selecting different kinds of sounds for you to listen to. But they also have some talk shows on, and I'm part of their public talk shows. Have been for years now, 17 years. And so I've got some history with this, but I haven't really done a lot with this on the YouTube streaming service yet. So if you want to call in and you want to speak to me, you can see the numbers on the top of the screen. And if you want to take a shot at this, and I hope you do, give me a call, and I'll see if I can walk you through how I might be able to help you. Maybe with somebody at home that you're struggling with. I've had people who are having situations where they're in broken families, trying to help their children with their ex-husband or wife. Sometimes I have people who are in families who are struggling to keep their family together. But I've also helped people in business and industry and in groups and all kinds of public communities where they're working towards trying to create teams that function collaboratively, that work well together, where decisions that need to be made collaboratively and people have strong disagreements with one another. How do you help people deal with that? Well, those are all things that I've learned over my lifetime that I'm really good at helping people with. And so I would like very much to help you if you want to call in. So you can see the numbers ahead of you. It's 402-867-1208. And once you call the number, you'll be asked for a PIN, and you can dial 114-332-291. So I'm encouraging you to call in if you've got something you'd like some help with. But I'd also encourage you to call in if you want to share something about the two topics that I want to talk about today, and that is about fathers and Father's Day, and also about something to celebrate regarding our country on our 250th birthday. You know, I've heard our country spoken about it. We have a form of government that isn't very good at times, but darn, it's the best form out there. I don't see anybody else doing any better anywhere, it seems. Now, you could argue that point, certainly. But a lot of people think of America as a large melting pot where people from many, many other countries have come into our country and have found homes here. And they have come from all over the world. They've come from all the different continents, all the different nations. We have people from everywhere. And yet what binds us together is we are Americans. We are Americans. We are American citizens. And I make that point on purpose because it's important, I think, that people come here and they come the right way and they become citizens. And people that have been here for a long time maybe didn't come the right way, but have been here and done what they've needed to do legally, then you too should become citizens. We should find a way to make that happen. So I'm encouraging you to call in with something that you want to talk about, that you feel good about, that you want to share about some circumstance in your life that you'd like some help with, something about fathers that you think are worth sharing about your dad, or if you are a dad, something that you really like about being a dad. And also, it'd be fun to hear you talk a little bit about, hey, what do you think you're excited about regarding our 250th birthday, celebrating an America that was just a dream where people could come and have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, have a democracy for and by the people. Knowing it's not perfect doesn't mean that it's not a really good thing and that there aren't lots of good things happening in our country. as we have all seen through the eyes of all the people visiting us these past few weeks as we've entertained the World Cup. And hasn't that been fun? So let me talk a little bit about Father's Day. So my dad, he was called Sonny. His name was Sumner Wolf, and he was a hero of mine for many reasons, having to do just with him being my dad. But he was also a hero for our country. He was in a very, very select group of people who flew on the outside of an airplane in a turret. He was a gunner who protected all the other planes that were flying missions over Germany and Italy and that theater. He flew out of Italy. That's where they were stationed. And he flew over the Puesti oil fields and Vienna and Munich, some of the most dangerous spots in the world. And he was credited with bringing down other planes. People depended on him for their lives because as people went up to fight against all the U.S. air pilots, and it was U.S. Army Air Force at that time. There wasn't a separate branch of the Air Force. He was part of the U.S. Army Air Force. You were supposed to fly 20 missions and go home. That was what most people could stand emotionally. A lot of people, as you know, if you paid any attention at all to history, didn't make it back from those runs. A lot of their planes got shot down, and people died. With my dad's situation, he lost the gunner on the other side of the plane. That's as close as it came to him losing his life. The glass got shattered on his turret one time. But he was okay. He didn't get hurt physically. He suffered mentally. Emotionally, he was challenged when he came back because he didn't just fly 20 missions. They changed the rules because so many planes were lost that they couldn't just afford to send people home when they thought they could. They changed them from 20 missions to 25 missions. So he flew more missions than the 20 that he thought he was going home after 20. But then after 25, they changed it again to 30. And he went 30 missions. They kept changing it, and my dad kept going up. He didn't ask to come home. He kept going up, and he kept going and going and going, and ended up flying 52 missions. There was less than 1% of all the people in that time, in that war, in that circumstance, that flew 52 missions. He was an elite group. He won a special medal for what he experienced and what he accomplished and what he achieved. But it shook him to the core, and he had some emotional issues that we didn't call it post-traumatic stress syndrome back then, but he experienced that to a degree that caused some problems in our family over time. But it didn't stop him from being the man and the wonderful dad that he was. We were really close around baseball and sports, and I used to love to go to work with him. I used to love to just hang out with him. He was the funniest guy I knew in my entire life, even to today. I still have cousins and family members that remember him, and when we get together, they talk about, your dad told a story, and they remind me of the story that he told. And people would laugh until they just couldn't control their laughter, even if they'd heard the story before. He was just a really, really funny guy. But he had some difficulties and challenges that I don't like to think a whole lot about, but some of that adrenaline rush that came back with him from the war, he needed that somehow. And it challenged him sometimes with some of the things that happened in our lives that made life challenging for my mom and for my brother and myself. But mostly I just adored my dad. And so that's what I wanted to share about my dad. He was a war hero, but more importantly, he was a hero to me. He taught me how to tell a story. He taught me how to make people like me. When I wanted people to like me, the way you go about that. He talked to me about make people understand that you want to listen to them, care about them, support them. He was really interested in other people, and I became really devoted to understanding and wanting to be helpful to other people. That's part of what he taught me, and as well as my mom. And my mom was somebody who was really in my corner all the time. She always was there to help me, to maybe when I didn't have a success, to build me back up, to pick me back up. And when my dad struggled some, she was there to hold us together. And she was the strong one at times in our family. And I so appreciated both of them. And I hope you were lucky enough to have a family that you appreciated. One of the things that I've encouraged people to think about over the years, as you think about life in general and the people that raised you, and maybe it was your grandparents, maybe it was an aunt and uncle, maybe you were in foster homes. Lots of people aren't lucky enough to have a father and mother who stayed together over the years and helped to raise you. But whoever raised you, whoever gave you their time and took care of you and tried to give you what they could give you and do the best they could for you. And no, it's never enough. We never, at least as a parent myself, I feel like, boy, I wish I'd done a few things different. But I'm so thankful that my kids believe in me and believe I'm a good dad and give me a lot of credit for a lot of the things I did get right. And I know I made some mistakes, and so did my parents. And I think all of us are raised by people that make mistakes. But one of the things that I encourage you to think about, and think about this emotion roadmap, is sometimes I see people in the work that I do, whether it's as a coach in a business setting. You know, I've coached Army generals, I've coached CEOs and presidents of companies, and I've coached supervisors and individual contributors. I've coached people who are dealing with families who are drug addicted. I mean, I just like to be able to be helpful to people. It's something that makes me feel good about myself, is if I can help you. That's why, again, I encourage you, if you're thinking about, hey, this guy's interesting, I wonder if you could help me with what's going on for me. And if you think I might, pick the phone up and give me a call. I'm happy to stop what I'm talking about and thrilled if you want to call and see if I can help you. So that's a challenge. I know there's people listening right now, and I know people are sort of thinking about it. And you might say, maybe I'll call next time you're on the air. Well, it's always a possibility. But you know what? What if I could help you today with something that's on your mind? Wouldn't it be great to get that taken care of now rather than wait? So maybe we figure something out. Maybe there's something that I can help you with. Be good if that could happen. In any case, when you're thinking about dealing with fathers and you're dealing with the idea that people are trying their best to be a good dad, to be a good mom, be thankful for what you got from your parents or your parent, whoever it is that might have raised you, because they gave you what they could. And, you know, as best I could, I took the best of my father and the best of my mother and made them part of me. I took some of the other pieces, too. I had to learn how to let go of those that weren't so great and made them part of me, too. But part of this is just the idea that you want to figure out a way to hold on to what's best about whatever you experienced as a kid growing up. Take that and make it work for you. And where it wasn't working, where you didn't learn some things, take responsibility for learning those things on your own. Wouldn't it be great if we all had... I was watching, and I talked a lot last week. I was on the air, and I was talking a lot about the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson and the way he talked about his father and his mother. And I don't know if you know this, but the New York Knicks, those of you who are sports fans know, they just won the NBA championship for the first time in 53 years. And they were led by an incredibly gifted and wonderful young man named Jalen Brunson. I say wonderful. I don't know the man, but he was a wonderful team player. I can tell you that just by watching. But he also spoke really proudly about his dad, about him being in his corner, because his dad was the assistant coach with the New York Knicks. How great is that? That would have been when I was growing up. If my dad got to be an assistant coach with the Red Sox, because he always dreamed I'd be a Red Sox pitcher. I'm left-handed, and when I was a kid, I used to throw a ball that just naturally was a sinker. I don't know if you know what that means, but that means when I throw a ball across what's called home plate in baseball and someone would swing at it, they'd swing on top of it because it just dropped on its own. I didn't even know how I was doing it, but it was really hard to hit the balls that I would throw as a kid, as a pitcher. But I threw my arm out, so that didn't work out. My shoulder to this day, I could still throw a baseball or a football or any kind of ball, but there's a pain there that never went away. Because I tried so hard to be so good as a kid. But I did play varsity sports, and I played some varsity baseball and soccer. And boy, I'm glad I played soccer. Boy, it's so much fun to watch soccer today. to see these outstanding athletes playing unbelievable soccer and playing for their country, and all these fans so supportive of watching their teams play against one another. It's really a joy. But in any case, what I'm trying to say about learning from your parents, what you might learn from your mom or your dad or whoever raised you, take the best of that. Make that part of you. Honor their memory by making that part of what you remember about them because it's part of you. And any baggage that they might have left with you, next time you take a trip, leave that baggage behind. You don't have to keep that with you. It doesn't besmirch their memory by letting go of something that they did that you thought, geez, I never want to do that, and yet you find yourself doing it, whatever that might be. So be forgiving of your parents. Be thankful for what they were able to give you, or anyone, again, who raised you. And take responsibility for being the best version of you. Don't look back and say, well, I wish I had parents that did whatever for me. Sure, that'd be great. But whatever we all get out of life is partly what's given to us and partly what we earn on our own. So take that responsibility on to learn and earn on your own what you need to be a great dad. What's it mean to be a great dad? For me, being a dad is about listening to my kids, watching my kids, trying to understand what they need from me. Even to this day, none of my kids are little anymore. They've been big for a long time now. And two of them have children of their own. And the other one's a teacher, and so she's dealing with lots of kids on her also, but in a different way. But, what I want to say about being a dad, I think, is I still think about each of my daughters and my grandkids. And what is it that I might do that might be meaningful for them? How can I help them on their journey to be the best possible versions of themselves? What is it that they might need from me? This particular Father's Day, went out to a wonderful place. If you haven't been, it's a great time to go. It's Elizabeth Park, the oldest rose garden in the country. That's what I understand about West Hartford's Elizabeth Park. Roses are all in bloom right now. It's peak time for roses. And so take a ride out to the park if you have the time. Wherever you're listening from, if you can get to Connecticut and get to Elizabeth Park, it's a joyful experience. Well, we were there with my two of my daughters were able to come in. My third daughter's in New Jersey, and we're going to be together next weekend, so she didn't come in, but we'll spend a week with them later. And then what I'd say is, take the time to be with your grandkids too. Let them know who you are as a person. Not just, hey, hi, Grandpa, and that's the extent of their greeting. But play with them. Do something with them. So we had a ball. There was a large ball, and the kids have been learning and playing soccer. But the only ones that wanted to play ball were myself and my two grandsons that I was with over at Elizabeth Park with my two daughters and my wife and my wife's sister who lives in town with us, who lives in town near us, rather. Anyway, so I taught them how to play kickball. If you don't know how to play kickball, it's like baseball. You roll the ball, and somebody kicks it as far as they can. And we were just seeing who could kick it as far as they could, and then pretending to run bases. And there were just three of us. But one of the things that I've learned about being a granddad, and with young children particularly, is just keep everybody busy, keep everybody involved. So we kept rotating. One person would kick, one person would field, one person would pitch. And as soon as you took a ball, you kicked the ball, you took a turn, now you're out pitching, and then you're out in the outfield. And we just kept switching it up, and we had a really good time together. It was lots of fun. And then we went looking at roses, and one of the things I've come to love over the years is gardening and roses. And I love particularly fragrant flowers, particularly fragrant roses. That old-time rose smell, fragrance is just delightful. And so I took the kids around, found the roses that smelled fragrant, and said, come on up and smell this one. This is fun. And just really enjoyed being together with the grandkids, and also giving my daughter a break, who was there with her children. Her husband couldn't come because his dad isn't feeling well, and so he had to be with him. And he's a great guy, and I wish he could have been there too. It would have been fun to have him there as well. So trying to just be all the things I can be emotionally to my children changed when they got married, because now they've got their own families. And now I'm thinking, okay, so how does this all work? There's another family that they just joined, and now someone's joined our family who they're marrying. And how are we going to get along? And I thought, well, hopefully everybody's going to be really easy, and we're all going to get along, and everybody's going to try hard to be understanding of one another. And then reality hit. And it wasn't so easy. But you know what? Using this emotion roadmap, thinking about how do I want my son-in-laws to feel? How do I want my daughters to feel about my interaction with my son-in-laws? How do I want my son-in-laws to feel about my interaction with their kids? Not just thinking for a second, but really thinking and planning how I wanted this experience to go. And it wasn't always simple, and it wasn't always easy. Because families, just like if you've joined a different company or a different team, you understand that things aren't always the same as what you liked about where you were and you joined some other group, whether it's a different family or a different team or a different community or whatever it might be. The norms, what goes for rules are the same. And so you got to understand, how do you fit in here? How is it different than where I've been? Now, I think there's always things like kindness and being thoughtful and charitable and respectful. I mean, those things go a long way no matter where you are. But then again, there's certain things that you just have to learn to understand about how things can be different in different places. You just don't know. Here's a funny story about norms being different. So I grew up in the Massachusetts area, and I grew up in Boston. And what you know, if you know anything about the Boston area, is that there's a lot of traffic. And you have to be really aggressive in order to, get onto a highway sometimes, or they call them roundabouts other places, but in Massachusetts we call them rotaries. Well, rotaries is a little round island and a whole bunch of roads going off to the side, off the island. And sometimes you pull up to that rotary and you got to find a way to get in, and it's a busy time and traffic's coming and going and going. And you have to be aggressive to get into that rotary or that little roundabout. So anyway, I learned how to drive in Massachusetts is my point. And then I moved to Iowa. My wife and I moved to Iowa for a few years. And I thought, okay, I'm in Iowa. And again, I'm being kind and nice and respectful and all those things I just said that you could do. But they had four-way stop signs. I hadn't experienced that in Massachusetts. I don't know if you've ever driven in a place where they have four-way stop signs. But anyway, in those four-way stop signs, when you got to a stop sign, you pull up and you stop, and people take turns. You kind of look at who got there first. They take their turn. They go. Then you go. Whoever's going to the right, you just go around. I didn't get that. I came from Massachusetts, where you got to a stop sign. If the other person didn't just right away enter that intersection, and they were at a stop sign about the same time as you, I was always the first one out. I just did that. I just thought, you just gotta be sure to go aggressive, because that's the way I grew up. That's what I was taught that you're supposed to do when you drive. Well, that wasn't what you're supposed to do when you're in the Midwest. Not in a small town, rural town, farm town. No, people take turns. I didn't get that. So people would beep at me, and I'd go, "Why are you beeping at me? You were too slow. I just was. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to just get out there in front." Those are one of the things I wish I knew about before I got called on it. Well, anyway, one of my good friends was in the car with me one time. He said, "Chuck, we take turns here," and he explained it to me. I said, "Oh wow, I never realized that." Now, maybe it should have been obvious, and you could say, how could you be that dumb not to catch on that? Well, I don't know if I did it very many times. It was probably just a few times, but it just stuck with me, because I never thought about taking turns. It just wasn't part of what you did when you were driving. But I've learned to slow down and take turns for lots of things these days. It's another part of being a more emotionally mature, I think, as someone grown up, and trying to be a more emotionally intelligent and trying to be the best possible version of what I can be when I'm really on my game here. So if you got something, again, that you have a dad or an experience of being a dad, caring about your kids, making sure that you're doing what you can to be helpful, trying to understand what they need from you, looking for them to find things that you might do that might be of interest, that you might do together with them. It doesn't always work the way you want. They're not always on top of their game. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable and doesn't feel great. But that doesn't mean that you don't keep trying to make it great every time you're with them. I always look at it as like if something in a relationship isn't working the way that I'd like it to work, well, I'd like to see someone on the other side of that relationship, if it's on the other side of me, do something different, do something for me. I mean, we all sort of want that. But at the same time, I realize that, you know what, if I want them to do something different for me, I got to be maybe more thoughtful about what I'm doing for them. What can I do to make them want to do more for me? What can I do for them, just for them, and not worry about me? It's another way I think being emotionally intelligent matters. Being smart about what you do for others to make sure the relationships you have are the kind of relationships you want, the kind of relationships that feels right to you, that makes life good, that makes life feel like you really want to be a part of this family at this time in this way. I want a part of this business and this team and this company for these reasons. I've been doing some work with a group that are chefs and cooks and executive chefs and leaders in the restaurant business. It's a tough business, and supposedly the customer's always right. But you know what? It's not true in my experience that the customer's always right. And so, how do you manage emotionally? What's the standard operating procedures? I had a really interesting chat with somebody this morning. I was interviewed this morning on a podcast. It was for software developers about artificial intelligence. Now, I was curious about why they picked me to want to interview and talk to. And they said, well, we'd like to know, because you're an expert on emotional intelligence, how does emotional intelligence support artificial intelligence? And that was a really interesting conversation that I had that maybe I'll talk more about another time, because it was really fascinating to talk about it. But the point I wanted to make is about anything to do with things that are new, that we have to learn, that maybe are uncomfortable, and we're not really, we didn't grow up, people my age didn't grow up with technology. And so if you stop working maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, you retired, and you haven't kept up with technology, you might feel kind of lost out there. But because I still work, I'm still engaged, and I'm still learning, and I've kept what people call a growth mindset, I'm open to new learning. That doesn't mean that it doesn't intimidate me sometimes about what I'm trying to learn. But I do try to learn things. And I encourage you to do the same. Again, that's emotional maturity. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Find things that work for you to keep you engaged, that keep you enjoying life, that keep you involved with your family, with your kids if you have them, with your grandkids if you're lucky enough to have those too. So let me move on and let me talk a little bit about this idea about what it feels like to be an American in today's world. So thankfully, we live in a country where people can express their opinions, and those opinions often sometimes are hard to listen to if they're not your opinions, and somebody's shouting about them, and they're nearby where you are. But that's the beauty and part of our world. But also, I do want to say that I just love the idea of how we were founded. But when you look back over time and you realize there were so many things that you look at and you think, I used to think, founding fathers, what brilliant men, mostly, I guess. I mean, I'm sure there were women that made contributions, but we mostly know about the men that were making things happen back at the time that our country was founded. But as smart as they were, they didn't give women the right to vote, without a real battle for many, many years. I just saw a commercial about this where when it was that a woman first got her own credit card. Now I think back and I think, how can people make those kind of choices? And then I think about the horror of slavery and the idea that not everybody is the same human beings. We're not always the same. Everybody's not the same. When all men are created equal, well, not really. Not really all men. How could anybody believe that all men aren't equal? All men. How could we think some of the things that happened over the years? But I also understand this idea of trying to judge things from this point of view, looking back over time and saying, how could we do the things that we do? And I suspect that there'll always be reasons to look back and say, wow, that was horrible what was happening back then. And yet, And this is the other side of that. And yet, that was what was normal. That was what people thought was true. That was what people experienced. Right? We used to think that everything revolved around the earth, right? We believed that at one time. Everything revolves around us as an individual. We might still believe that at times. We're all part of this oneness. I tend to think of us as all part of this amazing experience of being in the universe, where I think we're very lucky to be born in America. I look around at a lot of the other countries, and I think, sure, there are some other nice countries that you could be born into, but a lot of the world is still much more unsafe than it is here in our country. Now, because we have 24-hour news cycles, and we're always looking for something that's going to capture people's attention and get more clicks on social media sites, we're hearing about all the worst things that happen all the time, a lot of the time, constantly, nonstop, until you just turn the news off. Everywhere, not just on your radio, television, but social media today is where most of this is happening, right? How do we just kind of enjoy a walk in the woods? I happen to live in Simsbury, and one of the most beautiful places to walk is McLean Game Refuge. Just a lovely place to go out and just be in nature. Now, you got to share it with the bears, because we have lots of bears in Simsbury. So that's been a little unnerving to go out in the woods these days. But I have bears right in my yard all the time, too. So but we're all part of the same world, I guess. And it's like, how do we learn to live in the world and appreciate all the beauty that we experience? How do we enjoy just being around trees? There's so much we're learning about trees these days. What are the things that's happening with artificial intelligence and quantum computing? And so we're learning so much more about the world. And I think at some point in time, we're going to be able, you know how we use our smartphones to translate? You probably have seen some people do this, where somebody doesn't speak English, and they speak maybe, Spanish or Portuguese or some other language. They speak Hindu or some language, and they use their smartphone, and they say, okay, let me speak they speak on their smartphone, and it comes out in English, and I speak into their smartphone, and it comes out in their language. So at some point, we'll have chips inside ourselves, I think, that will do that for us. I think part of artificial intelligence isn't so scary to me, because at some point we're all going to be plugging into the same networks. It's the control issues that we have to be concerned about, I think. But anyway, the goal of being thankful for what you have and being grateful is such a wonderful way to think about life. And as we approach the 250th birthday of America, I know we could be better. I know there's lots of people that walk around very upset about many things that are happening in our country. And yet I encourage you to put a smile on your face. Smile, and the whole world smiles back at you. Enjoy the fact that we live in one of the best countries in the world. Not necessarily the best at everything that we do, certainly not the best at everything we do, but it is a good country. And just keep working every day for you to make it better. And we do make it better, each of us individually, by just showing kindness. I'd like to leave you with this idea of Willie Nelson. It's a wonderful message in one of Willie's songs. He didn't create the message, but he did put it in one of his songs. It says, live every day as if it was your last, because one day you're going to be right. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated, and see how it changes your life. So let me leave you with that. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated, and see how it changes your life. Smile more. Enjoy what you have. Be grateful for the things that you have. Be grateful for the relationships you have, for the people in your life. Be grateful for dads. Be grateful for moms. Be grateful for children, for grandchildren, for friends and relatives. And be thankful that we got people trying to make the world a better place. We may not always agree with the way they go about it, but I think there's a lot of people trying to make the world a better place, and they try to keep us safe. And so let me say, is to my dad and all those others who provided a service that worked to keep us free and safe, and to be able to express ourselves, and to be able to worship the way we want to worship, and to be the kind of country that we want to be. Thank you to all of those of you that have protected our freedoms over the years. And again, this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to me, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you found something enjoyable in the show. Bye-bye now.